The week's most impactful local news stories and newsmakers. It's your Week Reviewed. Next.
Week in Review is made possible through the generous support of Dave and Jamie Cummings, Bob and Marlise Gorley, Smithfield Foods, Haas and Wilkerson Insurance, the Courtney S. Turner Charitable Trust, John H. Mize and Bank of America N.A. co-trustees, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome everyone, I'm Nick Haynes, and thank you so much for delaying your Valentine's plans so you can watch this program before you head out to celebrate. It means a lot to us and to our news reviewers who are in an exceedingly loving mood this week, or at least I hope so. 41 Action News anchor and reporter Dia Wall is with us, and from KMBC 9 News, Chief Political Reporter Michael Mahoney. From behind a microphone tracking the news every day at KCMO Talk Radio, Pete Mundo. And from the Call newspaper, senior writer Eric Wesson, whose outfit this week is a love letter to all of us in Kansas City. Thank you, Eric. Now, he's been on the job now for 6 months, and this week Quinton Lucas gives us the biggest glimpse of who he is and what he's about as he delivers his first State of the City address.
As you've already noticed, we were able to bring a Super Bowl in the first 6 months.
The Super Bowl aside, Lucas wants to be the mayor to finally lick the pothole issue, and he gets lots of media attention for his plans to appoint a pothole czar.
A city where our infrastructure doesn't lead to blown out car tires or damaged hubcaps or injuries to cyclists that may cost hundreds or thousands or cause injuries that may take someone off work. This year's budget will include an increase in our street resurfacing fund to $17 million, a 70% increase from the funding level 2 years ago for street resurfacing.
So are potholes finally coming to an end in Kansas City, Michael Mahoney?
No, there are going to be tons of them, and they're going to be bigger and worse than they were last year, and last year was a terrible problem.
Even for all that he said, we're going to have a pothole czar, we're spending more money on resurfacing?
Well, we're not spending more money on it, and he'll acknowledge that, okay? There's $17 million in there, which was in the budget last year at $17 million, but they only actually spent $9.5 on street repavement and overlaying and pothole patching. The rest of the money went to other public works operations, like buying new trucks, that sort of things. And he will admit that. As for a pothole czar, he's now getting pushback on this. There's some folks saying, isn't that the job of the public works director? Shouldn't they be the czar? Another council member says, hey, you know, the $50,000, $60,000 for this, we could hire a couple of more workers or more equipment. And the pothole czar is not in the budget. He's expected to announce who this might be any time now.
That was just one section of his speech, though that got most of the attention, Dia Wall. Was there something else in that speech that we hadn't heard before?
Oh, millions in federal funding for housing in the city. You know, that's a huge issue that we've been talking about for months, even preceding his time as mayor. And also, I think marijuana decriminalization for those possession charges, drug paraphernalia charges. So I think those were also two big things that came out of the State of the City.
What did you hear in that speech that you weren't expecting, Eric?
I agree with the millions for housing. I thought that might be redirecting some funds from CDBG, because I haven't seen anything in the federal budget or in the state budget that is going to increase housing. One thing that I didn't hear in his speech was addressing reentry for people returning to the community from prison. I think that's something that's overlooked, and that's something that needs to get a lot more funding and attention.
How about for you, Pete?
To me, it's what Eric was saying, which is what was not in the speech. There was no talk about a streetcar, no talk about glitzy downtown buildings. It was meat and potatoes, which he ran on. Now the question is, can he accomplish it? Can he get it done? Fix the potholes, try to lower the crime rate. You got to do all these things. But in terms of what he said, it's what a lot of people wanted to hear, and it's a message that resonates in every part of Kansas City, not just picking and choosing winners and losers.
You mentioned crime, and we certainly, and you were on this program just recently, we were talking then about January being the deadliest month in the last decade of a January in Kansas City. Were there any new fixes that he was proposing?
He wants to redirect $500,000 from Children's Mercy to have a 4% increase for the police department so they can get some social workers so they can do some more work on the ground. A little bit of pushback there as well. Children's Mercy is saying, hey, that makes up 75% of the money that we get from the city, and we are caring for the most vulnerable when it comes to children. So we'll see what happens with that.
One other thing, the big surprise in this, to me at least, is the fact that there's $4.4 million that was supposed to go to Visit Kansas City, Creative and Cultural Arts, as well as the Film Commission. That got whacked out of the budget because at the last minute they discovered they've got to pay an additional $4 million a year for the next 20 years on the Lowe's hotel note. Lowe's is about to open up. Lucas says, hey, look, man, we put in $35 million on this. We were told no more money from the general fund. Now we're getting hit with another whack of $4 million a year.
There were more police officers in the budget.
Yeah, there's more police officers in there. I don't know exactly what that's going to do. I guess it creates some more job opportunities for other people, but I don't think that'll solve the crime problem. People who commit crimes don't commit them on the forethought of getting caught. So I don't know, visibility might help with the success rate of solving homicides, but I don't think it'll do anything to decrease violent crime in our city.
And how about the fire department, too? There's another few $million in there for the fire department, and that's weeks after they say, hey, we want a 1/4-cent sales tax on April 7th for $20 million a year through 2035. It kind of got slipped in there. No one really talked about it, but boy, talk about audacious. That's the word that came to mind for me.
I have to say, I give a lot of credit to Quinton Lucas for changing the nature of his speech, that he was doing it at 6 o'clock at night. Normally they're in the middle of the day when people can't go. But what was amazing to me, as we saw in some of that footage there, even though you put it in the evening for the first time, there weren't that many people in the audience for that speech.
Hey, it's 2020. You can stream it.
Yeah, Facebook Live. Facebook
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You don't have to be there.
It was cold and snowing, so we can give him a pass with that.
Okay, we did mention the crime issue.
And former Mayor James also did some of his State of the States in the evening as well.
Yeah.
Getting a lot of media attention this week was the local crime-fighting group Mothers in Charge, getting federal money to go door-to-door in 8 neighborhoods with the goal of having conversations with residents about what makes them angry. How much impact would that have on the homicide rate, Eric?
That is like the most ridiculous spending of money. People are angry because they're angry. They don't have the same access to quality life that other people have. You have people that have the mentality that they would rather be judged by 12 people in a jury than be carried by 6 people in a casket. I don't think it's going to be an effective way to spend the money. It looks good, it sounds good, but it's just meaningless. Going door to door to talk to people about why they're angry. We're angry because it's cold outside.
This also marked a sort of 6-month period of Quinton Lucas in office. What has been his biggest singular accomplishment thus far?
Oh, that's a tough one. It's too early for me.
Too early
I
for
think
you?
the jury's still out.
Probably buses. I mean, that's the one thing you can point to right now and say, okay, I mean, it's not technically here yet, but it will be.
Because they haven't got all the money yet.
Yeah. I mean, they got 5 of the 8, and they got to find cuts for the other 3. But I think that right now he'd say, hey, providing free transportation, and there is no free lunch, but free transportation to everybody in town that wants it is something that he's going to hang his hat on. It got national attention as well. So it was a good PR move for the city. We'll see if it actually works out like they hope it will.
Was that his biggest accomplishment for you, Eric?
I don't know if he has one other than the Chiefs. He's great with PR, great taking pictures, but leadership and sitting down with rubber to the road, I haven't seen it. Even I was talking to one of the judges about the kids with juveniles with guns, and he was saying he never talked to us about it because that's a juvenile court issue. They never come into the city anyway, so the city doesn't have any jurisdiction on it.
Michael.
The state does.
I'll give him the props on the effort on gun control, not only for the kids, but for people in domestic violence abuser situations, and he's trying to get that done at the state level. That's not going to happen, but that's the early signature move for me.
What's the biggest challenge that he has still to overcome as mayor of Kansas City, Pete?
I think it's Michael's issue on the violent crime. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He almost hit a record last year, and it's a long-term process. He talks about wanting to get the homicides under 100, right? And there's this debate on whether it's this year. Nobody can possibly think you're going to reduce homicides by 33% in a year. That's crazy. To me, it was a 4-year plan anyway. Now, it may not come close to getting there, but I can't give props yet and say that the gun ordinances he's signed into law are a big win because we haven't seen the numbers drop yet.
It's such a complex issue. It is violent crime. That's the biggest kind of black eye struggle for this city. But it's multi-layered, right? Is the answer more police? We don't know. Is it the kind of policing? We don't know. Is it more programs for youth, for conflict resolution? Is it more job opportunities, increasing wages? We could go all day on possible causes and how we got to this point, but I think solving violent crime is the issue.
Eric.
I think his biggest challenge is leadership on the city council. You have a chief of police, he's an expert in crime. Let him, force him to be in a position to address violent crime. What I need him to do is fix the potholes, find housing, create jobs, do economic development. I don't need him focused so much on crime. Let the chief of police do that.
I think the citizens of Kansas City expect the mayor to focus on crime, to be honest, because of the situation, and it's going to be a slow turnaround on this. The long-range key out of this, and it is going to be incredibly difficult to get there, is improving the economy. Because if you give a man or a woman a job, that helps a lot.
Well, we are a big metropolitan area. Quinton Lucas wasn't the only mayor delivering his State of the City address this week. So was the mayor of Overland Park, Carl Gerlach, who is giving his annual speech. At the same time, the future of its largest company is in doubt.
We got some breaking news. As Becky said right before the break, it is now official, a federal judge approving the merger between T-Mobile and Sprint.
T-Mobile says it expects to completely take over Overland Park-based Sprint as early as April 1st. Thereafter, a judge removes one of the final obstacles that could have derailed the merger. A group of states had claimed the deal would mean less competition and higher phone bills. Those claims rejected this week. Not one word, though, about Sprint in the Overland Park mayor's State of the City address.
I don't think there'll be a loss of jobs. I think they're going to keep the jobs about the same.
Now, if you thought officials in Johnson County would be now pulling their hair out in a state of mass panic, it certainly wasn't visible this week. I know Sprint was once much larger, but this is still 6,000 jobs. Are we making too much of a deal of this T-Mobile takeover? Will it not have the impact we think?
I think when you look at this, it's something that, if you're a free market person, you say, okay, let's see if they can become a major competitor to the AT&T and Verizon of the world, which could actually create more options for the consumer at the end. And, if the local government's not too concerned about its own, folks and whether or not there's going to be major loss of jobs, then let it ride and see what happens.
But we do know Sprint's name is everywhere in Kansas City, and including at Sprint Center downtown. Sprint's name is going to disappear as part of this T-Mobile move. T-Mobile is keeping its name.
Right, and for folks to say everything's going to be fine, that's whistling past the graveyard, okay? There will be job cuts. And the idea, the image that we just saw here a second ago of all the prairie grass on the foreground of the Sprint Center is symbolic. That's going to go to the weeds. And this is not good news for the local economy at all.
Well, the biggest priority, by the way, in Overland Park at the mayor's State of the City address was making its busiest highway a toll road.
US 69 is the most traveled 4-lane highway in Kansas, including I-70 or I-35.
It gets a grade of an F today, and it gets worse in the future if we don't do something about it.
So how do you feel about paying tolls, though, to drive in Overland Park, or more accurately, dipping into your pocket so you can ride in an express lane that will allow you to move faster than everybody else? Now, when this story first came up around about Thanksgiving, I thought, well, we in the media can often bring up ideas and, we want drama, how seriously this was going to be taken. I didn't expect this now to be the option, and we're moving forward right now on it.
This is so far in the future, it is difficult to even call it feasible at this point.
Okay.
But it's out there. And toll roads are in Kansas right now, and they're used effectively between here and Topeka and here in Wichita. I don't know if a limited stretch like that of that highway is going to be effective with a toll lane. I don't know. This is years down the road, though.
But they were looking to move this as fast as forward.
I get that.
And that's why they wanted to do it this way.
I think it's also a great pivot from Sprint and T-Mobile, right? So it gives you something to focus on where you can say, we're making significant infrastructure improvements. This is something that people in our day and age want to see. We are tired of raggedy services, especially when it comes to public services and things like our highways, our water systems, all of that. So I think it gave him a perfect opportunity to say, hey, we're working for you, even though they do have 2 more years of other projects, as Mike mentioned, before they even get to this.
This week marks the 100th anniversary of Negro League Baseball, or more accurately, the founding of the first organized professional black baseball league, and it all started right here in Kansas City.
We asked for integration, but what we really wanted was equality. And those two things are not the same.
Black baseball was always innovative. They were always ahead of the curve. They had to be.
And to a great extent, black economy never recovered from losing the Negro Leagues.
An excerpt from the KCPT documentary, A Century of Change, that premiered this week. By the way, you can see the rebroadcast of that film Sunday afternoon at 4 here on KCPT. I would be remiss if I didn't point out that our friends at other television stations also working very hard on this, including 41 Action News, which is doing a year-long reporting project, cleverly titled Changing the Game. Dia, why is this so important that you're devoting a whole year to this?
Oh, because I think it is a momentous occasion in Kansas City history. It's not often you can mark something 100 years ago that significantly not only changed America's favorite sport, but America as a whole. And I think that our goal was to find those hidden gems, those stories that can give everyone in Kansas City, the whole metro area, some pride, right? And some of the history that was made here. And I think that we don't know a lot of it, right? I think that the Negro Leagues and their story were really in jeopardy. If you ask a lot of kids today, they have no idea. And so for us, our goal was to really track the celebration all year, tell some of those stories that you may not know. I learned some stuff I didn't know, and put it in a nice format for people to really enjoy.
I look forward to seeing the whole year, but I truly do. The one thing I want to add to this is Major League Baseball and the Players Association have given $1 million to the Negro League Baseball Museum. If they want to truly, really support it and not put their mouth behind their money here, put Buck O'Neil in the Baseball Hall of Fame this year to mark the centennial. Now, Major League Baseball does not control the Baseball Hall of Fame, but they can push it. The fact that he got passed over before was an outrage. He's going to be on the ballot next year. Do it this year.
Yeah, about a decade ago, the New York Times did a front-page story on the sports section of that newspaper talking about how the actual Negro League Baseball Museum was in danger of closing in Kansas City at that time. The number of visitors had gone to a trickle. They weren't getting the money they needed to keep that operation going. How is it doing today, Eric?
I'm a big fan of Bob Kendricks.
Yes.
Bob Kendricks brought that museum back, and I think during that time that article came out, Gary was Greg Baker. Greg Baker was the executive director, and he kind of moved away from Buck O'Neil. When they gave it back to Bob, Bob centered Buck O'Neil because Buck's been dead for 13 years, and that museum, since Bob has been there, hasn't missed a beat. And I think the $1 million that Major League Baseball gave to them was for the Buck O'Neil Center, not for the museum.
True.
There's one more thing I do think is important to add. This entire year, there is a heavy fundraising campaign because the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum was started without an endowment. That is unheard of when it comes to museums. So this is really an opportunity to put their story front and center and rally support, public support.
Does it still get money from the city?
Yes, it does. And look for this year there to be a new exhibit. I think they're going to be doing some, I know they're going to be doing some remodeling, and they're going to put some new exhibits in there as well.
Will a spat over abortion now sink Medicaid expansion for another year in Kansas? How about will a spat over abortion block every big item on the governor's agenda this year? Democrats in Topeka complaining they can't get anything passed or voted out of committee since the House narrowly failed to pass a constitutional amendment on abortion last Friday. Can Republicans bottleneck every priority the governor has on her agenda between now and the end of the session, Michael?
They've bottlenecked it so far. We'll see. You never know what's going to happen in the legislature until the end of the session. But there's clearly a link that has been made by the Republicans and their push for this abortion amendment to be on the ballot this year, and Governor Kelly and her Medicaid expansion plan. And that link will remain until they get a deal to put the abortion amendment on the ballot.
You know, when we started this year, there was a heralded bipartisan agreement, and we had Republican leaders and the Kansas Democratic governor coming together. There's going to be Medicaid expansion. Is that in jeopardy now?
Absolutely. I mean, Republicans have been working behind the scenes the last few weeks to see if they can kind of swing some people back the other way. And on top of that, you have a Senate President, Susan Wagle, who's running for U.S. Senate. She's trying to get as much of the conservative base in the state as she can behind her. Now, it's not working too well, but she's trying to do that. She can then not allow this to go through because her Senate campaign is toast if she does that. bad.
And within hours, and Pete, you know this really well, within hours of that vote failing last week in the Kansas House, Wagle took all the Medicaid expansion bills and parked them back in committee, and they're going to stay parked there until there's a deal on the abortion amendment.
Every day in every line of work, there are people who are going to quit their jobs and tell their boss to stuff it. They don't normally make headlines, so why did the resignation of one teacher this week in the Shawnee Mission School District attract so much attention?
Just like a bad relationship, our communication has broken down. You aren't listening. There will be no clarifying questions. I don't answer to you anymore.
So why did the resignation of Indian Woods Middle School teacher Amanda Kaufman get so much attention this week? Is it because she's a teacher, or that it was all captured on video, dear? We all want video.
I think it was an emotional and passionate plea, right? Whether you agree with them or not, this story has been in the news for months. They are among, if not the highest paid teachers in the state, I believe. And so on the one hand, the district can say they're compensated well, but on the other, the teachers are saying, look, you want more students. You want us to do more instructional time. We have to work second jobs to make ends meet. And so they're kind of at a stalemate, and they ended up getting a smaller increase than they were hoping for.
Peter.
And to Dia's point, you know, property taxes are a big deal in Johnson County, getting a lot of attention. You got to justify raising them for teachers. Now, they got a raise, you know, it was 1 to 1.5% on a 3-year basis. I understand that. But, you know, if you go through the numbers, Shawnee Mission Schools has 4 deputy superintendents making a combined $900,000. I want teachers to make more money. Who doesn't? They do some of the best work in our communities. But you got to look at where the money's being spent right now, and it doesn't look like it's being spent very wisely.
Beyond the money, which is important, the other big issue on the bargaining table for this was the amount of work that they get to have outside of the classroom. Most of the teachers in this area have 2 free periods a day. Shawnee Mission teachers have 1 free period a day. That was a big point in these negotiations, and they didn't get that in this proposed contract. So, that's a big thing on this table.
It's really the working conditions, but also that word R-E-S-P-E-C-T, the famous song, if you don't feel respected in the workplace, and I think that was a part of how they were feeling.
I get that sense on the show weekly.
Okay. Next up, we debate several stories for you, and these are updates. Last week, President Trump says plans were afoot to host the Super Bowl winning Chiefs this week at the White House. So whatever happened? Has the plan been scuttled?
They're waiting for Roger Stone's sentencing.
Okay.
Oh, stop.
What happened with that? I have not seen any updates on that.
I have no idea.
Typically, these championship visits to the White House don't take place instantly after the championship. Sometimes they're months away. We'll see.
Okay, Tuesday was the final deadline to submit ideas on the best way to honor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in Kansas City. The mayor had asked the Parks Board to reach out to the community after voters reversed a council decision to rename the Paseo after King. What did the public come up with?
I know one of the groups has a resolution or signing a petition in the black community to go back to the airport. They're actively circulating a petition to sign for that. Other than those messages you showed us earlier,
yes.
I thought it was a done deal.
Yes, this was not my script, by the way. This was actually the 600. More than 600 comments printed out. We did an open records request, Mike Sherry in our digital newsroom, Flatland. And these are all of the comments. I'm not going to read all of them for you, but some of them were kind of interesting, from renaming the Truman Sports Complex after King to renaming Emmanuel Cleaver Boulevard, lots of those after Dr. King, and renaming J.C. Nichols Parkway. Huge number of those in this 600 and plus pages here for that as well. So lots of interesting ideas coming from the public.
And it's going to be up to the Parks Board to decide what they're going to do with this and then submit it back into City Hall. So that's the next step in this process.
This is not back to a public vote, though, on whatever is named, is it?
Not yet.
No, you never know.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Now, when you put a program like this together every week, you can't get to every big story. What was the big story we missed?
Was it the biting cold that shuttered almost all of our schools this week? Notice how many people are sick? Johnson County health officials now say suspected flu cases are at a 5-year high. It's been called one of Kansas City's worst animal hoarding cases. Nearly 300 animals removed from a midtown house. 200 of them were rats. The head of the Hickman Mills School District abruptly resigns, then takes the top job in the Center School District. And ahead of next month's Missouri primary, Michael Bloomberg opening 2 Kansas City field offices. Elizabeth Warren has already opened an office here. Bernie Sanders winning in the number of murals around the city.
All righty. Was it one of those stories or something completely different, Dia Wall?
For me, it's got to be the rats. Oh,
What was it about that story? You know, I wanted it to be that the city didn't respond. The people only complained very recently about that, didn't they?
I think, one, we have this weird fascination and almost instant response to hoarding of any kind. And then when you see hundreds of rats, hundreds, and the man who owned them was like, well, yeah, especially the ones I've named. Sir, I could line up all 217 of those rats. You can't tell me if it's Johnny or Billy.
This was also a great symbol of the compassion of the city, because they said he could keep up to 20 of them.
Oh.
Yeah. That was a very nice gesture. Pete, what did you put as the biggest story we missed?
Going outside the box, Eric Greitens, news comes down Thursday. The Missouri Ethics Commission finds his campaign almost $200,000, but he's individually exonerated, and already, don't call it a comeback, but my goodness gracious, he looks like he's already trying to angle for something here in a political future. It's coming.
Okay, Michael.
I agree with Pete. That's my choice as well. The MEC came out with this report. It said that the Greitens campaign probably violated campaign laws. They fined him $178,000, and Greitens says that he's exonerated and vindicated, and that's why Pete is talking about a comeback.
Yeah, that's why I didn't add it to the main mix, because I thought this was an old story, but you're talking about now a potential political future where we may see his name on the ballot.
He tweeted for the first time.
Okay, Eric.
I think it was the superintendent from Hickman Mills going to center. That's the second time a superintendent's done that. Dr. Carpenter did that. He left that school district and went to
But he went
Lee
to a
Summit.
much bigger one. And this is interesting, because center's a much, much smaller district, so it doesn't seem to be the same career progression.
But I don't think it has as many challenges as the Hickman Mills School District does.
And that is our Valentine's edition of Kansas City Week in Review. Our thanks to the calls Eric Wesson and Michael Mahoney from KMBC 9 News, 41 Action News anchor and reporter Dia Wall, and 6 to 10 weekdays on KCMO Talk Radio, Pete Mundo. And I'm Nick Haynes. From all of us here at KCPT, thanks for spending part of your weekend with us.